The price of true relations. Welcome to Unique English Stories. David was a man admired by all. A self-made millionaire in his mid-40s. He had everything: a thriving business, a luxurious lifestyle, and a wide circle of family and friends who constantly surrounded him. Whenever he attended family gatherings, everyone treated him with the highest respect. His relatives pulled him to the front rows at weddings, making sure he sat with the elders. His siblings proudly introduced him as our successful brother. His friends made sure he was the guest of honor at every event. At his niece's birthday party, he arrived with a large, expensive gift. His sister beamed and said, "David always makes everything special." Children gathered around him excitedly, knowing he always brought the best presents. At his cousin's wedding, the family insisted he take a seat at the center table. "David, you have to bless the couple first," his uncle said, treating him like a VIP. His generosity was boundless. A struggling cousin, he helped him start a business. A friend facing financial trouble, David offered support without hesitation. He believed in relationships and never thought twice before giving. But life is unpredictable. One wrong business decision, a market crash, a failed investment. In just a few months, everything David had built crumbled. He lost his fortune, his company, and the luxurious lifestyle he once had. He wasn't entirely broke, but he was no longer the rich man everyone admired. And suddenly, everything changed. At the next family wedding, he arrived like always, expecting warm welcomes. But instead of pulling him to the front, his relatives barely acknowledged him. He was directed to a seat at the back. His presence no longer seemed important. At his niece's birthday party, he brought a simple but thoughtful gift. His sister smiled politely, but quickly moved on to talk to someone else. The children who once ran to him with excitement barely noticed him. Calls from his siblings became rare. Friends who once visited him often were now too busy. Relatives who had once depended on his generosity conveniently forgot him. For the first time in years, David felt alone. But not entirely. Through it all, two people never left his side: his wife Sarah and his parents. Sarah held his hand through every struggle. "We built this life together once, and we will do it again," she reassured him. His parents, too, remained by his side. "Don't worry about those who left. The real ones never leave," his father said. His mother continued to pray for him every night, just as she had when he was young and struggling. Their love gave him the strength to rise again. David worked harder than ever. Slowly but surely, he rebuilt his business. It took years of effort, but success returned to him. This time, even greater than before. And just like that, as his wealth grew, so did the number of people around him again. His siblings, who once ignored him, now spoke fondly of him. His relatives, who had once distanced themselves, suddenly wanted to include him in every gathering. His friends, who had been too busy, now had time for him again. At another wedding, the same uncle who had overlooked him years ago now pulled him to the front again. "David, you must sit here with the family." At another birthday party, his sister beamed again. David always makes everything special, as if the years in between had never happened. But David had changed. He still attended the functions, still greeted everyone politely, still helped when needed. But this time, he kept his distance. At a family dinner, his elder brother finally spoke. "David, I just want to say we were wrong. We should have been there for you." David smiled, his voice calm but firm. "I forgave you all long ago. But some things, once broken, can never be the same." A silence settled over the table. His words, though spoken gently, carried a weight that no one could ignore. His siblings exchanged uneasy glances. His cousins, who once laughed freely around him, now lowered their gazes. His friends shifted in their seats, suddenly uncomfortable. For years, they had acted as if nothing had happened, assuming that time and success had erased the past. But now, for the first time, they felt the distance, an invisible wall between them and David, built not by anger, but by the wounds they had inflicted through their absence. His elder brother cleared his throat, trying to lighten the mood. "Come on, David, we are family after all. David gave a small smile but said nothing, and that silence spoke louder than any words ever could. They watched as David continued talking to others, laughing politely, engaging in conversations. But something was missing. The warmth, the closeness, the effortless bond they once had with him. It was no longer there. They were now just guests in his life, no longer family in the way they once had been. His sister, who had once ignored his calls in his tough times, felt a sting in her heart when David excused himself from their conversation a little too soon. His cousin, whom he had once helped financially, realized that though David still greeted him, he no longer treated him like a brother. His childhood friend, who had disappeared when David lost his money, now longed for the deep conversations they once shared. But those conversations never came. One by one, they all felt the pain they had once unknowingly given him. And that was when they truly understood. They hadn't just lost the rich man they admired. They had lost the brother, the cousin, the friend who once cared for them without condition. And no amount of regret could turn back time. David left the gathering that night feeling no anger, no bitterness, just peace, because he had learned a lesson that wealth alone could never teach. Money brings people closer, but only character keeps them there. If you like the story, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends for more interesting stories.